Welcome into the Slate, a big Monday night football game tonight between the Rams and the Cardinals. Let's not waste any time. There is news to get to. Both Tyler Higbee, tight end for the Rams, Jalen Ramsey, the star corner, they have both been ruled out for tonight's game, placed on the COVID-19 reserve list. Geoff, Ulrich, Matt Meiselman, they are both DraftKings contributors. Joining me, Brendan Glasheen. Geoff, we'll go to you first. This news just came to your attention in the last couple of minutes. How does it impact your thinking on the line tonight, maybe even some of the totals for this game? It's at Cardinals +3 now.
Yeah, so for me, I like the Rams to begin with. We talked about it this morning. I like them on the money line, and I like just taking them at +3 now that it's moved up there. I know that Ramsey's an important piece, but I still think that this is a really going to be a close game between two teams that are very close in skill levels. In terms of player props, you could think about targeting now. I like Sony Michel to have a big game here too. The Rams went to more jumbo packages. Assuming Darrell Henderson is out, we haven't gotten confirmation though. Michel over 69.5 rush yards. I also think that with Ramsey out, you could think about a guy like Rondale Moore, got a very low total, 25.5 receiving yards. You could go over on that. So those are a couple things that I think get boosted by this news.
Two corners being out, I like the call. Rondale Moore +290, anytime touchdown scorer tonight. You figure he's going to get like a bottom of the barrel corner. Meiselman, what does this news mean to you and how you look at this game?
For me, it mostly just adds a lot of uncertainty because we don't know exactly what the defense is going to look like without Ramsey, what kind of different schemes the Rams might use. And then on offense too, without Higbee, are they just going to throw in one of their backup tight ends because they don't usually play another guy with Higbee? So that could be Blanton, that could be Hopkins, or maybe they just go with more 3-receiver and even 4-receiver sets. I just have a harder time figuring out what's going to happen here. I had said this morning that if the Rams got to +3, I would like them. This is not the reason that I wanted them to get to +3. So I still kind of lean that way. I think that a field goal maybe is a little too much, but I'm worried now because these are two important players that are out. But as far as props, I think Cooper Kupp, he was the guy I was looking at this morning too. His total was 90.5, 95.5 now because he should have to do a little more without Higbee in there. I still think that number might be a little too low, which sounds insane. It's 95.5 receiving yards, but Cooper Kupp, I think, has to do just about everything for this Rams offense. So I'm still kind of looking there, but it's just kind of hard to know what's going to happen here.
All right, let's get each of your take on the showdown. Meiselman, we'll go to you first on this one. You mentioned Cooper Kupp. He is the most expensive player. Those salaries won't change. The backup tight end for the Rams, he's $600. I figure his ownership, Blanton, he might be highly owned as a cheap play at $600. What's something now from this news that you can take for a showdown angle?
Well, I think it's going to be really concentrated now in terms of who people are playing. And we also aren't going to have Chase Edmonds on the field. So James Conner, too, should be more popular. So I think most lineups are going to look like 4 of the expensive studs will include Sony Michel there, even though it's a little cheaper. And then Rondale Moore and then a Rams tight end, whichever of the two guys that people go with, either a $600 guy or a $200 guy. So I think it's going to be interesting trying to figure out how to differentiate from that because it's really easy to fit Stafford, Murray, Kupp, Connor, Michel, maybe DeAndre Hopkins too, because we have these cheap plays that actually are going to play significant roles. Rondale Moore, $2,000 kind of just makes everything fit. So we'll have to kind of get into that and see how we can get lineups together that are different from that construction that I think that everyone's going to kind of go to.
Geoff, you got an angle here on the showdown that you can add?
I really think the Rams are going to run the ball a lot tonight, and I think they will have success. Again, I've said this like 3 times about this game in the last 2 days, but they used more jumbo packages last week. Sean McVay will change formations. He's done it late in the season before, and I think he's doing it again. I think his plan here is to run Sony Michel into the ground tonight, and I think they can have success. I think Kyler Murray, Sony Michel, guys, you need to be looking at it for captain. And value, it's really thin. Like Rondale Moore, absolutely. I like that too, but I'm not sure where else you go here. If I don't think the Rams are going to be throwing that much, I think the other thing you could do is, guys like Zach Ertz maybe could get overlooked. I think that a good way to attack the Rams defense, even, with or without Jalen Ramsey, is to look over the middle anyways. They've allowed the 9th most receptions to opposing tight ends. So I think Ertz is a guy you could look to for value, differentiate a bit, but there's not too many cheap guys. A lot of people will be on more. And, maybe one of these tight end 3s for the Rams. I don't know, Pinckney. I don't know. Maybe they show up. I think that's the other angle. You could go really cheap with and take a dart throw with the Rams 3rd stringers.
All right. Very good. Very good. That's how we start the show. We come right at you hard. Just getting you with this news here with Higbee, Ramsey, both on the COVID list for the Rams. We know they're out because they were put on the list today. And the rule is you need 2 negative tests to return within, I think it's 24 hours, right? Both tests have to be done within 24-hour window. So I guess in total, 48 hours, which means there is maybe hope for Darrell Henderson to get activated for tonight's game. Chase Edmonds is coming back tonight as well for the Cardinals. And we will certainly monitor other injury news as it pertains to this game and also the COVID news. It is a great game, I feel, to wrap up the week, but it's not great how it's ending with the COVID stuff, but it definitely adds some theater to it. So we can certainly dive into all of the angles on the slate. We are here until 6 o'clock getting you ready for this game. We can dive in a little bit more, in a little more detail, as Matt Meiselman adds to us. Thank you, Matt. The Cardinals did not activate Chase Edmonds for tonight. It's the James Conner show. So, Geoff, you mentioned that you think the Rams are going to run the ball. Meiselman, do you think the Cardinals with Murray, who had 39 rushing yards in the first meeting head-to-head in week 4, is it actually going to be a James Conner show tonight?
It's going to come down to the game script, I think, which is what just makes this game a little unpredictable. Is if the Cardinals are leading, I think we see a ton of Conner. There was potential for this to be a split between Conner and Edmonds, but obviously that's not the case anymore. If the Cardinals get behind early, then we probably do see more Sony Michel from the Rams side, and we see the Cardinals have to throw more. So, I mean, Conner's going to be on the field, whether they call running plays for him or not. He's the guy who's going to be out there, and Conner has caught passes while Edmonds has been out of the lineup. Conner has done fine as a receiver. He's caught a couple of touchdowns too. So I think he's worth looking at, even though he's just as expensive or close to as expensive as some of these other top guys like Stafford and Murray and Kupp. But Geoff mentioned before, like Zach Ertz, and then I think AJ Green also, like for showdown, I think those are really the guys, like the mid-tier. Christian Kirk is probably part of this too. And then maybe like Van Jefferson and Odell Beckham become contrarian plays now also. Like right in the middle, I think is where you're going to kind of have to go to be different. Use at least 1 or 2 of these guys, because I think Kendall Blanton will be, like, as crazy as that is, I think he'll be a very popular option. And I think Rondale Moore, we already knew was going to be a popular option. And again, part of the reason that this is the case is because this game has some really obvious guys to pay up for. And in other games in the past, like we've had showdown slates where the Lions have a couple min-priced guys, but like there's no one that you have to pay up for on the Lions. So like it doesn't work out where you necessarily need the cheap guys to fit the expensive guys. You just can not play any Lions, and that works out okay. But in this game, if it's going to be anything like, if it's going to go according to plan in any capacity, like Stafford or Murray or Kupp, if not all of them, are going to do well. So I think that's why people are going to make those kind of lineups. And then, yeah, maybe AJ Green will actually look for the ball this time when they throw him a pass in the end zone at the end of the game. Like that would have helped last time. But I think him and Ertz in particular, I like the Ertz call, and I like Green too.
AJ Green did score a touchdown in the head-to-head meeting when they faced each other in week 4. Him, Hopkins, Max Williams, Max with 2 X's if you're looking for him, all in the 60 range as far as receiving yards. Kyler threw for 268 in the game. That's actually right around where his total is tonight in passing yards. And Chase Edmonds had himself a game. That was really before James Conner was unleashed this season. Geoff, I wonder overall from a game script perspective, does this help the Rams in a way where like McVay can just like simplify things where, okay, like my number one corner is out of the game. Let's keep their offense off the field. And to your point, let's run the football and just get out of here and scheme it up in such a way where I can keep Kyler Murray off the field as long as possible.
I mean, I think that's what they were planning to do anyways. And yeah. I think that game plan is just going to be heightened. Now, I mean, like if they can't do it, then it becomes an issue, because obviously if you get into another shootout, now you're getting into a shootout without your best corner against a healthy Rams receiving department. That's trouble, right? But if you can take the air out of the ball, shorten the game, and get a lead, yeah, I mean, I think that like that's a very viable way for that. This game could weigh out. And if we're talking about fantasy, everybody's playing the offensive guys. Like people are going to play Rondale Moore, obviously thinking big plays. But if you play the Rams defense, man, like I mean, that's kind of the way I think. With everybody kind of on the same page with the big guys, I mean, I think with thinking about how a game could go a little bit differently. And maybe this is just a low scoring game because, again, it feels like the over here is getting a lot of juice too. And I'm not saying this game is like a game I necessarily want to bet the over on, but for a showdown, I think that like Rams, Sony Michel kind of stack, something like that. I'm not saying Rams in captain necessarily, but I think that's really the way you're going to like super differentiate tonight. Those are going to be the low owned rosters. There's not many people out there who are going to play the D's in this game. I think most people are expecting a lot of offense.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Meiselman? We can kind of interchange between the showdown and the sports book because, as Geoff mentioned, over under now at 51 points. It was at 52 earlier in the week. It's worked its way to 51. Still a number that is definitely up there compared to other games that we see throughout the course of any given week. How do you feel? What do you think when you look at the total? 51.
I think, yeah, it's kind of what I said before, how the uncertainty has just kind of gone up. So I really don't have nearly as much confidence as Geoff does in terms of like the game plan because, well, one, Cooper Kupp might be the best skill player in the whole NFL. So I don't see them just not utilizing him. I mean, Michel may get a ton of carries and most of the passes could go to Kupp, and they may throw shorter passes because Higbee isn't there to be the over the middle threat. So maybe they use Kupp more in that role and he just does more things. But I think even though Ramsey's out, theoretically they would want to hold on to the ball longer. They also don't have Higbee, which could hurt their offense. And then on the Cardinals side, the Cardinals may just be able to score much more easily because they're going against a weaker secondary. So I'm just like, I could see this game being pretty low scoring if the game plan is to just try to run and milk the clock. And I could see this game being a total shootout because if the Cardinals, let's say, start out with the ball and come out and score, Ramsey's not on the other side. Like the Cardinals offense should do well. The Rams get behind 7-0 early. Like, I don't think they're going to just keep running. So it's kind of what I was saying before, where like, I think the way the game starts out early is going to have a huge impact on the way that like the progression and the play calling and all of that happens. So I kind of said this last week, and maybe I've just been leaning a little more in this direction in general, is like, I want to see what's happening first and maybe look into live betting the total in game. Kind of like with that Bills-Pats game with the weather situation.
A little different. Yeah.
It's a little different. Like there's not as much to be had in terms of edge, right? Like that was a game where maybe we're going to get a lot of wind in the first half and then it would die down in the second half. And then, there'd be a massive advantage. But I do think like if the Cardinals score first, that's an opportunity to go after the over because I don't know that the Rams are going to stick to the running game if they're losing early. And they also don't have Henderson. So they only have one of their two running backs. That could dictate what they do play calling wise also. And I guess what we really don't know is, was last week's game against the Jaguars a trend that will continue, or did they just run the ball a ton because they were facing the Jaguars and they just didn't need to pass? I don't actually know the answer to that.
Good question.
I mean, I'm a little more confident that, again, it is a shift in mentality just because of what Sean McVay has said and what they specifically did. But I mean, Matt is right. I mean, there's no guarantee. There's no set in stone thing here that they're going to be running the ball more. I think one thing, Matt, is we are 100% agree on. This game is harder to figure out with the COVID stuff now. And like the over under, the only thing I kind of like, and it's mainly because the number has risen, and I still think these teams are going to be close. It's still the line at +3, but like the over under, I think this game has a better chance now of like potentially hitting the under as well. But I don't really want to take the under because, again, I mean, like there's just so many more. I just feel like there's more variety of outcomes now. So I think it's thrown this game into a little bit more, disarray, but I still like that +3 getting on the Rams personally. I know Ramsey is a big piece, but I think it's probably a little bit overreaction just from the outlook of, I think the Rams can keep this close in many different ways. And again, running the ball is something I personally think they're going to have success again. And I don't mind betting on tonight.
Are either of you surprised that the number didn't move beyond 3 to like 3.5 or 4? Like, I feel like Ramsey's that important. Right?
I mean, we're still got a couple hours to go here. I think it could. Absolutely. Yeah.
I also think it may have been priced in earlier. Like, I feel like this stuff kind of gets out a little in advance, or there's speculation, there's something wrong before we see it. Like when the news officially broke, the line was already at 2.5. This morning it was at 2. It had been at 1.5 earlier in the week. I feel like it may have been trending in this direction because of concerns, maybe there was just speculation that because Henderson had the COVID issue that maybe there might be more coming and people were just betting on the Cardinals for that reason. I don't know if anyone knew ahead of time specifically that it'd be Higbee and Ramsey, but just like when there's a COVID positive test on a team, oftentimes there's another one. So like the line may have already been trending in this direction just because of that. So I think that explains why it hasn't moved more. And also the half point from 2.5 to 3 is actually a really big deal. Like if it was moving from 5 only to 5.5, that's a very different half a point than this half a point, which is actually worth a lot more. So maybe we see it get to 3.5, but honestly, I would be pretty surprised if it went up anymore.
And I'm not going to try and put my doctor hat on here, but what I will say is it's from two different sides of the ball, right? When we had it with the Chargers, like for example, Keenan Allen, and then all of a sudden it was Mike Williams. In this case, you have the running back earlier in the week, then you get the tight end, and then it's your star corner on the other side. And they have a corner who's already out tonight. I don't have his name off the top of my head. So the Rams are down 2 corners on their regular depth chart. They're going to go down now to 4 guys. That's why I think, like we've talked about on a showdown, you got Rondale Moore there at $3,000. Hard to ignore. And that's why I mentioned his anytime touchdown at plus 290, something that might be worth looking into because he's in all likelihood going to draw a player who has not received as many reps throughout the course of the season. When your best corner goes out, everyone now takes a step back. It'd be the same thing as losing your top receiver. So that's interesting. Okay, that's good to know. So Meiselman's telling you that if it goes from what you did, it went from 2.5 to 3, that is notable for sure. Do you guys take into account what happened in week 4 at all? 37-20 win for the Cardinals. I think it's what's proven to us the Cardinals are a good team. Like at the time, we're like, okay, it's a good win. Let's see if they can sustain it. Can they make it bigger than what it was? They clearly have. And their star receiver, their star quarterback, go out for a bit of time and they sustained success. And that's one of their wins you look back at and go, oh yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I agree with like your take on it. I'm just not sure that I want to use that to try to project anything for this game as a result of it. And part of the reason is just it's been so much time since that game. I think a lot's changed. Like Murray was out and then back in the lineup. The Rams have been up and down all season. I just think these teams are kind of playing differently than they were then. And I also don't like sometimes in divisional games, there's a tell or something a coach picks up how the other team is playing and the familiarity is going to change something for the second time around. But again, we have so much uncertainty with this game with the Ramsey and Higbee issues that I'm just not sure from like a game planning perspective that like it's really the same game is kind of what I'm getting at. And we also don't have Chase Edmonds. So not to mention actually, this is a player we haven't talked about in a while. Robert Woods is out and that changes the Rams offense too. Yeah. Maybe Woods was a bigger deal than we thought at the time because the Rams have not really looked great. I guess the Jaguars game is all right, but they've had some bad games without Woods. So, yeah, I just think the teams are a little bit too different right now to really read too much into what happened the first time.
Geoff, how about you? Anything? I mean, Robert Woods, to his point, did catch a touchdown in that game when they faced each other earlier in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, like it favors the Rams a little bit. I mean, they were coming in like maybe a little bit unsure of them, or just a little bit too sure of themselves at that point in the year. They're starting to get is this team ever going to be beat? And then they got their butts handed.
Right, they were 3-0.
I think it's kind of had forced them to like look at themselves a little bit and maybe figure things out. So yeah, and there's been a lot of player personnel changes actually on mainly the Rams since then. So yeah, I really wouldn't look too much stock into it. I think if anything, the early season defeat, it sounds weird, actually probably favors the Rams coming back here. But yeah, I wouldn't look too much into that game personally. I mean, Kyler was obviously able to move the ball really efficiently through the air. I think that's one thing. And he's probably going to be able to do it again. So I don't know. But again, a lot's changed. I mean, the Rams figured out how to run the ball a little bit last week. I mean, we'll see. So.
Okay. We've talked a lot about this game. That's for sure. So folks have any questions in the chat, we can get to them at some point during this show. We wanted to lead with the COVID news because that was just a development since earlier in the morning when we had programming here at DraftKings on YouTube, Twitch, and also on Twitter. So anything you'd like to ask as far as strategy for tonight, we can work those in. We can look at last week as a way to preview this week, but I feel, and Meiselman, you've kind of hinted at this based on what you've put into our Slack channel today. We're already more interested in what's happening this coming week as opposed to some futures because 2 quarterbacks, not 1, but 2, are kind of in doubt, one more than the other. Josh Allen's going to boot. We don't know what it's going to look like for him against the Panthers. Then again, it is the Panthers. They should be okay. But the Bills have been reeling. And then you have the Packers, who are now 5-point favorites as opposed to 7, Matt Meiselman. You were hoping, Ravens +7. It looks too good to be true. And now that has indeed reached 5 points. So we can look at next week's games as well. 2 Saturday games on the slate. And the Chiefs, they're in action on Thursday, visiting the Chargers. So, Matt, we'll have you go first. What does this do now for you with the number at 5? Packers -5 at Baltimore.
So my read on Ravens-Packers may have just been wrong because I looked at 3. The opening line was +3 if you bet it prior to this past Sunday, before the Ravens had lost to the Browns. And I saw the Ravens getting a field goal, and I was like, that is probably too much, even at 3. Obviously, that was healthy Lamar Jackson, healthy Aaron Rodgers. The line going up to 7, I think, was because the assumption was Lamar wouldn't be healthy enough to play in this game. So it's come back down to 5, I think, just because Lamar, it looks like, will suit up. And honestly, I think once we get confirmation that I don't know if this is going to happen, but assuming we get confirmation at some point this week that Lamar Jackson is good enough to play without too many limitations, like it's a tweak in his ankle, but he'll mostly be able to do all his normal things. I think we'll see this line come down even further and get to 4, 3.5, something like that. And especially now because Aaron Rodgers is saying stuff about his toe where he's concerned. I don't think Rodgers misses the game, but I'm more worried about him being compromised in terms of mobility than Lamar. I guess what makes this difficult is because Lamar Jackson is more reliant on running than Aaron Rodgers is. Mm-hmm. So overall, I just still find the Packers to be a bit overrated. Geoff and I have had many back and forths about this on this very show.
I can relate.
Mm-hmm. So it is a perfect game for us to start with, but it's not that I think the Ravens win outright. I think this line should be a field goal at most if both quarterbacks are out there, both starting quarterbacks for their 2 teams.
So John Harbaugh spoke today, feels good about Lamar Jackson playing in this game. Low ankle sprain for Jackson. The quote from today, if he can go, he'll go. That is coming from John Harbaugh on Lamar Jackson. Geoff, I actually don't know this. So you're the big Packers guy here. So where are they at defensively? Is Alexander back? Is what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Zadarius Smith.
Zadarius Smith. Are those guys back yet or what?
So, so Alexander's back at practice. He could be due back soon. Yes. It doesn't mean he's going to play necessarily, but he could be back for this game. So, I mean, defensively, the Packers have been good without him. I mean, right. It's only going to add to the fact.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the Packers aren't a team I'd necessarily want to fade. I was joking with Matt. I mean, I think I joked about him saying taking the points with the Ravens is a trap here. And I mean, I think he's right in saying if Lamar Jackson is out there, this probably shouldn't be at 5. I would argue maybe should be a bit bigger than 3, but it shouldn't be at 5. I don't know if I'd even want to bet the Packers, even though I do think they have a great chance to win this game big at 5, just because I know that there's a good chance this gets back to 3.5 or something once we get confirmation that Lamar is going to play. But I feel like the limitations with Rodgers, a far smaller detriment on the Packers' overall game plan. I mean, they can just have him back there throwing quick screens, using A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, which is basically what their offense is anyways, versus Jackson. If Lamar's not 100%, man, I mean, the Ravens, without Lamar Jackson, it's just such a big – it's almost like the Titans without Derrick Henry. They just rely so much on Lamar Jackson's big plays to get them through some of these games. I just don't know how they're going to move the ball against this Packers defense. Just really, really good for the most part. And now they might be getting one of their best players back. So to me, it's probably a stay away spot until the Ravens line gets down. And if it does get down to 3.5, I just think that with Lamar not being 100%, man, I just don't know how you can back the Ravens here. I think he's just so vital. They need him to be at his top every game because I just don't think they're that good, in terms of just their overall efficiency on either side of the ball. So I see the Packers as a superior team here, but you've got to wait and see, because I think this line is just like Matt said. I think it will come down.
Okay. Yeah. So
it is possible that Rodgers doesn't play this game, right?
That's true.
They can afford to give him the week off. Like the Packers have a lot to play for in terms of the bye, but they basically have already clinched their division.
So I don't want to walk into a Brendan Glasheen trap here, but I do feel like Aaron Rodgers is milking this a little bit. Like it's just, you get that feeling like, okay, now it's worse. And it's totally an Aaron Rodgers thing to do, right? Like, okay, I'm gonna
make himself sound better by saying how hurt he is when he's not actually that hurt.
You know, it's a complete Aaron Rodgers thing. So I don't know, but you're right. Like you've got to watch the Aaron Rodgers news too, because that's a possibility. So I think everything we've talked about, this is a game you wait on. And to me, I'm waiting on it so I can get on the Packers side, but that could also change if we get like some crazy news around Rodgers.
Just a quick point. I think Tyler Huntley versus Jordan Love, Baltimore is favored. Like I think Huntley has shown enough that he's the superior quarterback at this point. The Ravens are at home, even if their defense is a lot worse.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope we don't get that, because that would really ruin the fun. This is a game you probably circled on the calendar earlier in the year. Then again, Baltimore's not living up to their end of it. The Packers certainly are, since they're rolling, and Baltimore now is hanging on for dear life to win their division. Speaking of their division, I know we've talked about this division quite a bit, the AFC North, the value in the Bengals. They lose in heartbreaking fashion in overtime to the Niners. And then you've got the Cleveland Browns with that win yesterday. Cleveland is now in an interesting spot. They play Saturday afternoon against the Raiders. That's another game, and we could talk about other games too. I'm just bringing up the fact that the Browns are now interesting again. Like, are they a factor here in this division with the home game against the Vegas Raiders and two of their teams in division both losing, Browns beating the Ravens and Cincinnati losing to the Niners?
I think we can check the tape on this one, but I'm pretty sure the three of us agreed that Browns plus 600, 650.
I think it was something
week,
like that.
Right? Yeah, we
all liked it. I think you liked it the most, Matt. I think you're the one who mainly mentioned them. But yeah,
he knows he liked it the most. That's why he wanted to say it.
Well, I think my actual take was I think everyone besides the Bengals is interesting, because I don't think the Bengals are very good. And I mean, it was a little bit fortunate the Bengals didn't win. Just like the Niners put together a really great drive in overtime. That was a really close game. It just could have gone either way. Like, I don't think any team was especially lucky. Just it was a 50-50 game and the Niners ended up winning. But yeah, I still don't. I think that's a game that we should talk about too, is the Bengals' upcoming game in Denver. Part of I think you could bet Cleveland or Baltimore right now, just depending on the health of Lamar Jackson, which way you think it is. But I'm not interested in Bengals plus 275. I am interested though a lot in Browns at plus 175 if Lamar is out this week, let's say. Because then the Ravens' upcoming schedule just looks really tough if they don't have their quarterback. But I don't think at the current number I like Cleveland unless we see something seriously wrong with Lamar Jackson. It's just hard to bet this right now because we have so much up in the air as far as his health. And like, I still think that the Ravens might be worth looking back to if we think he's 100%, which is like, we're just not going to know that. But maybe something comes out later in the week where they say like he's practicing in full, he's totally fine, it's like nothing happened. At that point, I would say the Ravens are actually the team to look to. As it stands, though, I think having the Browns highlighted is like that's probably that would be my lean at the moment, like for who wins the division if Lamar is hampered. But yeah, I'm still not buying the Bengals. Like they're plus one in Denver this week. I think the Broncos should be a field goal favorite.
Makes you wonder too if Pittsburgh wins that game in Minnesota, like plus 1,200. Do we take the cheese on Big Ben, basically emptying the tank last Thursday night? They play the Titans this week at home, and I don't know. It's
if they win that game, they're right back in it. But yeah, I think not being able to complete the comeback in Minnesota probably set them back too far.
Right, they are 2-point dogs at home, Pittsburgh. So, Meiselman, if you want to weigh in specifically on your angles for that game, Denver home hosting Cincinnati, you're interested in Denver to cover?
Yeah, I just never thought it mattered that much that they traded Von Miller. They're still a decent team. Like, I think they're just, I don't know, slightly above average across the board. I mean, their passing game isn't great, but they do, even though Bridgewater's not a very exciting quarterback, they do have decent receivers. Their running game's been really good. Their defense has been good even without Von Miller. And I just don't think the Bengals are a good team. I think, like, quietly Joe Burrow is having a really bad season. He's just putting up a lot of counting stats because his volume is so high. They've been down in games where he has to throw a lot. And I think that there tend to be a lot of possessions in his games because of the turnovers where they're just like teams are going back and forth quickly because he's turning the ball over and short fields and all of that. So his counting stats may look good. I just don't think he's having a good year. And I'm not even sure that he's better than Teddy Bridgewater yet at this point in his career. Obviously, massive upside for him going forward. But at this point, like I think the Broncos are the slightly better team and they're at home. You can add in what you want about it being tough to play in Denver on the road. I'm not sure if I totally buy that being a huge deal, but I do think this line should be like 3 or 3.5.
Okay. Geoff, you got another game you want to target for next week?
Quickly thoughts on AFC North. I mean,
sure.
I do think the Browns are a pretty good bet. I mean, I kind of think like this week is almost like Waterloo for the Ravens. Like if they lose this one, they still have the Rams, Steelers, and Bengals. Hard to see them, maybe even going 2-1 with that schedule. So I think I kind of like the Browns as well. I think we all kind of like that one. I'm kind of out on the Bengals a little bit too. I'm not sure if they should be -3, but I'm not going to take the bait with them like on the money line or anything this week either. I'm a little bit done. I think the Bengals are going to be like a 2022 story or going forward. As far as games, like I do want to target. I mean, we've already talked about a couple. I mean, the Saints +11, God, that's a big line. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I get it, but I mean, like the Saints were a pretty decent team with Taysom Hill at quarterback last year. Like, I don't know. Did I miss some news here? Like, is somebody out? I mean, I don't know. It seems massive. Like the Saints have done.
Tampa's been covering at home. It's Sunday night. Keep in mind, listen. I know I'm going to put my Tom Brady, my Tom Brady clown nose on here for a second. Well, they got their butt kicked last year, 38-3 by this team. At home, they got embarrassed. I think that's the kind of stuff that lives in Brady's head. So
that's fair, and I agree. I mean, like I don't really want to bet against the Buccaneers at this point, but like it's more of just giving a little bit of respect to the Saints, who, by the way, if you look at like Sean Payton's road record covering, I think it's the best in the NFL. The Saints are over the last 5 years, and I get that like part of that was with Drew Brees, but like they've also had Bridgewater mixed in, Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston. Like Sean Payton is very good at covering on the road. So the number seems like a little bit, again, disrespectful to the Saints. Not so much we're inflating the Bucs. So that one really pops off at the start. There's a lot of double-digit lines out there this week that you look at first glance and you're like, you got the Bills with the banged up Josh Allen. I want to take that. That one sticks out. Like the Panthers, they just can't get it together on defense. They can't like get third downs. They can't get off the field. But like, how much respect should we be giving the Bills at this point, man? I mean, they're 7-6 team. They've proven like they can, rise up and beat a team. They've also proven they can play down to their opponents. 10.5 seems really big for that too. So, I don't have any like strong takes right off the bat. I think the New Orleans Saints game was kind of the first one, but I really don't want to bet the Panthers anymore, but that just seems like a big line for a team who's got some pretty good metrics on defense. If they could just put together anything on offense, it feels like they could cover that with ease.
So quickly, some notes here on games coming up this week. The Vikings have placed Alexander Mattison on the COVID list. So that's problematic for the Vikings, even though in theory, Dalvin Cook will continue to heal up, but he had a full workload the other night, last Thursday night. And then Kadarius Toney for the Giants placed on the COVID list.
Oh, I'll give one more spot. I actually do like. I've overlooked this game. I love the 49ers at home. I don't really care if the line gets up to like 9.5. The Falcons are bad. They're just a bad team. San Francisco is going to absolutely run over them next week, in my opinion.
One more question, kind of a bigger picture thought. Go ahead. What do you got, Meiselman? Go ahead. Respond to it.
Okay, I'll just respond to all three of those picks. I think the Niners are a good one. Like, no disagreements there. I just want to mention the quarterback concerns for both those other games. Like, I actually would like the Bills if Allen were fully healthy. I think 10.5 would be too low in that scenario, but we don't know. Like, he may be hampered and it may be a problem. Taysom Hill, since he got hurt mid-game against Dallas, I don't think has been throwing the ball very much. Like, I think he did throw a couple passes at the end of the game. One was a pick six. He did get a touchdown on a shorter pass. And then they didn't need him to throw really at all against the Jets. I just don't think we can, like, if Taysom Hill weren't injured, if he weren't playing with this hand injury, I think Geoff would be right. I think 11 probably would be too high in that case, but I'm just worried. Like, I don't think that if they get behind, his health is in a place where he can actually make the throws. They could get ahead early and they don't need to, but both of those games this is a really hard week because we have potentially a bunch of quarterbacks who are going to be on the field, but we won't actually know how healthy they are. I feel like that's the theme for this week, where we have 4 or 5, maybe it's even 6 quarterbacks where it's like, yeah, they'll probably play, but what are we getting out of them?
One more thought, because now we're getting towards the end of the year. Meiselman, are we at a point now where we have to trust the sharps and how they make these lines, and maybe teasing the NFL is a better option at this stage? Because we feel now, even though it was crazy, it's been a crazy year, but more so the middle of the year, folks really couldn't get a read on sides and whatnot. Is it a better option to tease games now because we feel sharps are doing a pretty good job of gauging these lines?
So I like this question a lot. This is a good topic to talk about briefly because I don't think that those necessarily go together. Like, I think the idea is right in some cases, and it's not worth trying to apply in other cases, because the line doesn't necessarily, like, trusting what the line is doesn't necessarily mean that you think the game will finish close to the spread. It just means that on average, this is roughly where it'll be, or this is the line where we'll get 50% of people to bet on each side. Like, honestly, it's most of the time, that's the purpose of the line, is just to draw even action, because the market kind of sets the line. So it's not like because let's say Seahawks Rams is 6.5, that we should assume that because of that the Rams will probably win by 4 to 10 points. I just don't know if it's true. I think in general, we should assume the lines get more fair towards the end of the season. So, like, I agree with that point. I don't know that you can then take that and say fair means the game will end up close to the point spread. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay. Geoff, you got a thought on that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that has much correlation either. I mean, football is just like, football doesn't change throughout the year. Like, it's still a high variance sport, right? Where even if a team if we got a 3-point spread, I mean, one of the outcomes is always one team can win by 40. And we see like crazy stuff happen like that all the time. So I don't know if teasing becomes better option later in the year. I almost think it's worse, because I feel like the injury issues are worse now, and the injury issues can have massive effects on the games, right? Like, we're already talking about them. Like, if Lamar Jackson goes out there and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he plays 2 plays and he's out, like, you tease the Ravens, like, goodbye, you know? So things like that, I think, play a factor as well too. I don't know. I've never been like a big guy to play teasers anyways. It's not like my favorite way to approach the NFL. I just like going ATS. There's an argument that, like, you know, I think when you're looking to tease a game, you should be looking at, okay, is this line, you know, what you'd say a sharper line? Like, do you agree with it? Do you think this is where it should fit? Then it gives more credence to it. But, like, I don't know if it's necessarily you're getting sharper lines late in the season. Someone smarter than me could probably answer that question, but I'm going to say, like, it's really not that much different.
Well, to Glash's point, I think we do know more about the teams later in the year. And for that reason, the lines are less likely to just be way wrong.
Right.
But the results are more random too, because there's just so many question marks with the health of all these players. And someone gets knocked out early, and like Lamar goes out early in the game. Although Tyler
everyone at this point in the year, everyone's hurt, right? No one's 100%, but it's how hurt are they?
Right. So we know what these teams should be if healthy, but we don't know how healthy they are. I guess that's what makes it difficult.
Right. Interesting. And for the record, Geoff, the teaser that I placed that Steve Buchanan didn't approve.
Did it hit?
Rams +9. That's the last leg. So.
Oh, that's the last leg. All right. Well.
So we'll see how it goes.
You started poorly because Ramsey's out, but hey.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I mean, obviously.
Cardinals win by 10. That's how it's going to go now. So. All right. Any final thoughts? I mean, look, now more COVID news. This, on a more serious note, I guess. This is terrible. It's impacting hockey. Geoff couldn't get his hockey article out today.
Thank God I didn't write it last night.
So is that the only game tonight in the NHL?
There was only one game scheduled for the NHL, which is really good because Carolina's got some guys on the COVID list now. Hopefully it's just limited to like this Calgary spot that they have to cancel it. I haven't heard too much more, but not great, obviously. Hopefully gets cleared up, in the next day or two. But that's kind of where we're at with hockey, just the 1 game cancellation for now. Carolina, Sebastian Aho went on the COVID list. I think there's like a trainer there that's diagnosed as well. So you have to watch the Hurricanes. They could be shorthanded. I know the Blues are playing shorthanded, but I think COVID is going to be the kind of theme of the week. We've already seen Madison now. There could be more spots. So this whole week, we're talking about trying to get more sharper, and we know
that's
things.
True.
This week is probably just going to be thrown right into the dryer, and it's going to be weird. So I think we'll be talking about player changes and player stuff all week. Kind of feels like that anyways.
We're supposed to have a 4-game basketball slate for our basketball show tomorrow too. It's down to 3 because Bulls Pistons is canceled. This is a good time to probably.
And the Bulls are canceled Thursday too.
Pre-Christmas COVID action is what we're getting here, folks.
It's never a bad time for it, but we should plug DK Live for keeping up with all the updates, right?
Yeah.
That's always necessary.
Yes.
Just got to do it once a show.
DK Live, very necessary this week, folks. Always necessary, but more necessary this week.
Much more than normal.
Turn those notifications on. They're very helpful. That's how we got the Madison news and the Tony news the last couple of minutes. Real quick, last thing we'll do before we go. First time playing Fortnite on Twitch. Any prop plays for tonight? I know we talked about them very early. I'll make mention again, Rondale Moore plus 290, anytime touchdown. I think that's worth a little bit of a sprinkle. Either of you, something you feel good about?
I'm kind of struggling. I think where I'm looking, we didn't mention just one that we didn't mention before. James Conner, I think the fact that Edmonds is not playing is going overlooked, and his rushing prop has gone up a little bit. I think it's still right around 60 yards.
60 and a half.
Yeah, I think it was 50 this morning. It might be getting to the point where this is fair now, but if I have a lean, I would kind of just, and maybe rushing plus receiving is the way to go too, because I'm not sure how many rushing yards Edmonds even would have got. Maybe he just would have been playing passing down. So maybe the 87 and a half there is interesting. Connor's gonna be on the field every play, so that number might still be just a little bit too low.
What do you got, Geoff? One last stop before we go.
Yeah, I really like fading Connor if Edmonds was going to be active, but I'd probably just stay off. But Connor's average 3.5 yards per carry, so I wouldn't even take the over. But yeah, I'm not going to take the under either. I've mentioned I really like the over on Sony Michel. Obviously, I think 68.5 for a guy who's going to be on the field every snap too. Played 90% of the snaps last game. I really like that. And again, I think that there's a little bit more value with taking the over on the Arizona Cardinals. And I actually like the over on Kyler's prop as well. I think they are going to have to throw the ball. His prop has gone up. It's 69.5. So I liked it in the low 60s. But if you buy into what I'm telling you and my thoughts on how the game has a good chance to go, Arizona should be throwing the ball a little bit more. With the Rams potentially being able to run the ball. So I think my main thing here is just take the over on Sony Michel. That's what I'll just end with.
That number, it's moved 2 yards since we started. It was at 267 and a half. So,
all right, I think the Ramsey news, right? Obviously.
Yeah, so. Right. Exactly. Okay, that's it. We need to go. All of you, best of luck with the showdown. Best of luck with any bets you make tonight. Keep it locked in to DK Nation on Twitter at DK Live. That's the handle for all of the latest breaking news on tonight. No Ramsey, no Higbee. There's a possibility Henderson plays, but highly unlikely. Keep your eyes on it. Meiselman's back tomorrow. I'm back tomorrow. We'll have NBA coverage here on the Slate. The Sweat airs at 11 a.m. on Twitch, YouTube, and also on the Twitter stream. So join us then. Thanks to Eamon and Andrew. For Geoff, Matt Meiselman, Brendan Glasheen. Have a great Monday. See you later.